One fish, two fish. No fish, we're all dead.
it takes my pain back to a place I don't understand. I know, oh Lord, I know it's in my heart and baby down in my soul. You, baby, you can't take it no more. No, I know I'm walking out that door the way you treated me too many times before. Don't you know you love me, baby, too? Oh, you know I want you there, I wanna be right there with you. I know I gotta keep you by my side till the day I die. 'Cause baby, ecstasy is in my hand. Oh, when I'm holding yours in mine and walking in the sand. Oh, baby, you know it's fine. Oh, now you done and piss me off. You ain't done something you shouldn't have done. Baby, I'm mad. I'm going on. Oh, I'm going on.
Welcome to Guantanamo Bay.
The way you treated me too many times before. in the sand. Oh, baby, you know it's fine. But now you done and piss me off. You ain't done something you shouldn't have done. Baby, I'm mad. I'm going on. Oh, I'm going on.
I'm really considering just Guantanamo Baying this shit until I see proof that there's real people watching. I can't take it no more.
I can't take it, baby. I can't take it no more.
Anyway. Welcome, everybody, to the Lost Forgotten channel. Once again, for the mostly tardy but not entirely late 11Z's broadcast. I am somebody, I think. And today we're going to be talking about stuff. Again, I think, allegedly. After I fix the camera. Yeah. And apparently other things. There we go. Oh, too far. Too far. I have overfixed it. Okay. Right. That. Okay, that's horrible. Okay. Why are you... Why? This was working earlier, I promise. It really was. It's quite lovely. I thought I was going to be able to, like, see messages and everything. But, anyways. Thanks for joining me, invisible people who haven't said anything yet, which is rather unusual. Today, we're not going to be talking about this stuff too much. Although, of course, if you haven't heard, we've added another thing to the countdown to impeachment, which hasn't really been much of a countdown because I haven't really said countdown to impeachment until just now. Let's see here. He hired a lawyer after his abrupt end to his Middle Eastern trip.
He was on his way to go to the Vatican. He went from Saudi Arabia to Israel.
On his way to go to the Vatican. Maybe they're going to exorcise him. I'd like to help.
We couldn't be
No.
lucky.
No. Okay. If you know it sits there up on a 3-level stand, you might know what I was just thinking. The manner in which I would perform that exorcism. No. And don't keep guessing. Because I don't have to lie when you're right. I probably won't, and that'd be bad. Moving on. Rain. I love the sound of rain. Don't so much like the muddy footing that we experience around here. So, how's it going, Lacey? Howdy, James.
Hey, Lacey. Hey, James.
Howdy, Jimmy.
Hey, Jimmy.
Let's see here. So, what was the name of the lawyer, dear?
Mark Kasowitz.
Mark Kasowitz or Kasowitz, one of the two. I'd have to wait and hear somebody say it on TV before I knew how to pronunciate it properly. Anyway. So, Jimmy and James, were y'all like, y'all had enough of the Guantanamo Bay version of Sunshine and Rain there, just never ending? I was just waiting. It was just one person on the thing for the longest time, and like, that's odd. That happens if I do one early in the day. They'll say something usually. But anyway. So what else happened here today that you wanted to say? You were about to tell me something else in the living room.
The former CIA chief says that, where'd it go? John Brennan was testifying, and he apparently testified that he was disturbed by intelligence that surfaced last year showing a pattern of contacts between Russian agents or representatives and individuals with links to the Trump campaign. He literally is quoted as saying, "I was aware of intelligence and information about contacts between Russian officials and U.S. persons that raised concerns in my mind." He emphasized that the information he saw did not amount to proof of collusion or cooperation, but said that it served as the basis for the FBI investigation.
Did y'all hear all that?
Sorry, I have a headache tonight.
If that wasn't coming through, I'll read it again for you. So, he had seen a disturbing level of contacts, and that was the basics for the FBI investigation. Held classified meetings with top congressional officials. Huh. And the fucking morons. Okay, this. What I just got silenced by was these assholes in the comments. I can't help but wonder if the dozens of countries the U.S. did this to had these same conversations.
You gotta stay out of the comments, baby.
No, they said, thank you for your kind freedom. No, I got to see the comments because I got to see just how stupid people are.
It's overwhelming.
Dozens, eh? First of all, name one, and I'll be glad to go into the fucking specifics. Anybody who still feels that way about the United States. And be careful of taking freedom for granted. Spoiled little children. Because you have no idea how horrible this world has been in the past and can very easily become again. And in fact, it requires no effort on my part, thanks to just how foolish you kids have been. So let's see. Nope. Damn it. Wrong thing. Come back, little chat box. Come back. And go back down to the bottom of everything. Go back. Oh, okay. This is a little bit tedious. There we go. Now you are no longer out of order. So anyway, what I was trying to do was delete this thing. Okay. And let's go put these old things back up here. Just in case anybody wanted to check through them again if you're thinking about setting up a fish tank. Really big fish tank. Alright, so I was kind of being a moron when I made these graphics, but don't be a moron when you're setting up your fish tank. And you should be okay, more or less. But anyways, I don't know if I mentioned this, guys, but I do in fact love my wife. Because she has been very helpful, not just allowing this to happen in our living room. This was our living room. It's definitely a living room now. That's what you call organic. She's been very helpful in setting this whole thing up, and she's been learning the ways of the Force as it pertains to not just marine hobbyism, but aquaculture in general. All right. So, before I get into just how delicate things are, which I think is very underexpressed and underexplained, and how horrible things are going to be very, very soon if people don't like just fucking grasp reality on a basic level. Seriously. Like, 99% of people have just become unsurvivably stupid. Okay? And that's how you got, you know, let's just let him show his little ugly orangutan face again. That's how you got this. You know, that's just how you got this. We've all become soft. We've all become unwilling to stand up for what's right, unwilling to put the time that it takes in to learn how to be prepared to fight for the truth. We're lost. Everybody. The whole of fucking humanity. And somebody needs to get it together and, you know, at least allow someone to try to help pick up the pieces. You know, since they didn't allow me to stop the final stages of this shit from happening. But anyways, I know some of my viewers might be thinking about setting up a saltwater tank. And as I've discussed, the best way to set up a saltwater tank is buy 2 of them. Minimum. Build yourself a spiffy stand and get a little 3-tier setup like this. And let me see if I can show you what it used to be. Maybe. Well, anyways, when I first set it up, there's, you can kind of see right there. Alright, I'm about to just roll with this one then. See this stand? It's pretty damn simple. It's a 2x12 cut into 3 pieces. Two 1x7s on top, I think it was. Two 1x4s in the front and back to brace those, because the only weight load that needs to be bared is front and back, and then the sides will just keep themselves level. And then you can set up your sump on one side. And what you do is, instead of waiting to buy your first fish, you get yourself, and this is a poor example, but it's the best one I have, a hospital tank. Bare bottom. Because what you're supposed to be doing right now is water changes. Okay? And you're going to need a lot of water anyways. You're going to need to master the art of making water at the right salinity, which, you know, I find Instant Ocean just makes easy as heck, because I just take my little 1-cup scooper, dump that in the bucket, grab 2 gallons of water, pour them in there, stir it up, let it sit for a while, stir it up again, and after about 15-20 minutes, it's ready to go. Slowly, very key, slowly back into the tank. And a really good art to learn if you're wanting to have a future in aquaculture, and this is the reason why to get this, to build yourself, or get someone to build you this little 3-tier setup, which, by the way, you can just, obviously the little 2x4 legs at the bottom become the stands for the bottom tanks. It's pretty simple construction. Couldn't be more simple, but it's got a nice look to it, I think. And it's very easy if you want to put cabinet doors right on those 2x12s. Not to give away my master design here, but if you're building 20 gallon, 10 gallon, 55 gallon, 29 gallon, like the shallower tanks, you're welcome. I mean, what? Wah, wah. Anyways, so one of the best skills for whatever I was saying, aquaculture, that you need to learn, that having this setup will teach you, is how to siphon poo. Okay, aquaculture is determined by how good you are at getting rid of poo. Like, basically, your job is, you are the enemy of fish poo for a living. Like, you do other things, but like when it comes down to the nitty gritty, that's what you do. You're a fish poo expert. Okay. And when you get your little hospital tank, there's gonna be a lot of poo. A lot of poo. Just just that whole. See how it's shiny? No, doesn't stay that way. It's poo. Food that they missed, and food that they didn't miss, just everywhere. Because when you're trying to grow fish, you're trying to grow them fast. You want to grow something fast, you gotta feed it a lot. Feed it a lot, it poos a lot. Pew 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 pew, just like a rapid fire arsenal of like artillery. Just pew pew pew, just boom, just. There's always at least 2 of them pooing. Just. Anyways, I think that's enough of that shit. Moving on. So, what happens with your hospital tank is it's your quarantine tank. It's your emergency tank. And once your system becomes full, it becomes either your experimental or your extra tank. Maybe your seahorse tank. And by the way, I've already given away a little invention on this channel that somebody gave away on another channel. But I added to it. All that's connecting these 2 tanks back in that little corner up here, right here, is a U-tube. Okay. These 2 tanks right here, there's just a little tube between them. And then there's a lift back in the back on this side that's air powered. And it just bubbles up and over into this tank. There's a little acrylic tube about this long. And it just bloop, 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 bloop. And this sponge right here, this sponge all the way in the back, covers that tube on the intake side, and the water between the two tanks stays constantly level as long as I clean that sponge about once a month. That's all it takes, once a month. It's got very gentle flow because it's a very large sponge for the size of a job that it's doing. You rig up something like that, you can keep seahorses on your main system. Or at least one seahorse. If you don't want to have to spend a bunch of time dealing with baby seahorses before you're ready for it, you might want to get 2 of whatever that species seahorses, same sex, best gets along together. Which, keep in mind, buying your first fish of any genus, especially, it's like buying your first dog. It's like buying your first cat. You have to learn about it, its behavioral habits, how to take care of it. You know, you have to learn about that thing. You can't just learn, you keep the tank clean, feed the fish, you're good. No. Every single fish that you're going to keep, and to a certain extent, some invertebrates, even anemones, have personalities, okay? But fish especially. And, obviously the main thing to keep an eye out for is aggression, because you don't want your fish eating or attacking other fish. And a good sign that you're not feeding your fish enough is aggression. And if you have to feed your tank too much that it can't handle the load, you have too many fish. If they're always being aggressive, and you're at the limit of how much food you can feed it without polluting the tank, you have too many fish. Chances are one of them is going to die soon. It will balance itself out. In fact, I've observed a lot of social behavior in this regard. Like once tank mates become established at a certain feeding level, and this usually involves the establishment of the tank as far as the natural foods that are available to those fish in between feedings. They'll decide who they don't like, and that fish will die. It just happens every time. They won't even show any signs of illness or anything. They'll be unable to eat for the amount of energy that they expend, and they'll exhaust themselves to death. And that when you're growing baby fish, this is my first little batch of fish, and this is the much larger batch that I have now, all coming up to the surface to try to beg me for food. When you're growing fish, you got to keep an eye out for that aggression, because you don't want things that you spent a lot of time and money raising from little bitty tiny dots the size of pinheads to actual fish. I mean, y'all can go back and look on the older videos and trace back the growth of these clownfish all the way to being eggs. All the way to when I got their parents, actually. In many ways, I basically, I didn't get the fish tank for the channel, but part of the rationalization was that the viewers would enjoy the fish tank videos, and I would have my own 30 years of experience to add to the conversation or whatever. Because, you know, I'm not up to date on the modern products, and a lot of these guys that are on here have done very good, you know, reading, and they definitely know what's on the packaging label of their products that they've bought. I'm not telling you that they sold them. A lot of these guys are just reefers, but when you start out in the reefing hobby, you start out by reading the packaging to find out what this shit does. Why do I need this? Why does this look so cool? Right? Because, you know, most reefers are guys. Let's face it. Most reefers are guys. It's mostly a hobby that you get into because you want to fuck with something, you know? And you can kind of see them learning, and, you know, you see on my channel my rust brushing off because it's been like so long, and I had to like re-experience things and try to remember the lessons I learned in the past, and like, oh, and then I spent a lot of time reflecting while raising baby clownfish. And not a celarus, those are true perculas. If everybody knows about raising clownfish, they know how much of a bitch that is. Basically, it's a rotor for feeding every hour, followed by an immediate tank clean out, versus a rotor for feeding every 3 hours and cleaning out the tank twice a day. True perculas require that much more maintenance and that much more rotifersion. I think it has something to do with the fact that they actually like higher temperatures. Higher temperatures usually mean higher metabolism. That's something also very important to realize in aquaculture. And of course, higher metabolism. They eat more and they poop more. I was such a proud little clownfish parent when I first put those in that tank. Let me scroll down. Sorry. Lacey says, "Hey, Kira." Kira is asleep. Sorry. Hi, Emily. Okay. What's up, Maximo? So, anyways. Yeah, okay. Don't know how to say hi to people who don't like have a name or introduce themselves properly. But let's go further into some basics on, like, you know, how you could set up your first system with learning about aquaculture in mind before I delve off into what I was thinking about on the couch earlier that made me want to make this video. It was supposed to be a quick one. I've already gone 44 minutes, and she's already asleep back there. Anyway, well, I think one of the problems, and it's not, you know, a problem that they have personally, but it's a problem that you might have when watching the other reef keeping channels. And I don't call myself a reef keeping channel. I'm a channel who happens to do a lot of different stuff. I'm just, you know, I'm just me. Is they have very expensive setups. Pretty much every single, you know, reefer out there, they got some pretty pricey setups. And there's nobody with just your basic bare bones, as cheap as you can do it, fish tank. There's a couple of nice little nano reefs that don't seem to give you much advice. When they're just kind of experiencing things as they go. But again, I've been doing this for 30 years. And, man, keep it simple. Keep it simple. When you're first getting into it, the less you rely on the products, and this is what I think the bigger reefing channels miss out on, the less you rely on the products, the more your experience teaches you things, the more you learn. Okay, so what do you need to get started? You need a light, you need a fish tank, and some sand. On the back of that fish tank is your basic aqua clear over the back, hang over the back, they call it an HOB filter. Which to me sounds too much like SOB filter. But anyways. Another great little thing for an intro fish tank. Once you decide you want to try some coral out, if you have fish, you're going to need to get a protein skimmer. Because coral does not like fish poo. The ocean, the reason why everything's dying is because it's becoming a very stinky environment down there. As soon as it becomes just stinky, just imagine what like decomposing plant matter, animal matter, any kind of thing, especially human waste, fertilizer runoff. That again increases the just blooms and decaying of plant matter cycles that cover reefs. I mean, just the temperature bleaching isn't even a fraction of the problem, but it gets a lot of publicity. So anyways, little protein skimmer you can get called a Rio, RIO Nano, N-A-N-O. And it takes a little finagling to get it, just operating smoothly. But the key is just get it bubbling to where it sounds like it's working right, and just let it sit for 3 weeks at least. It's going to take a while before it starts really skimming. When you're first getting your system together, you're going to see a whole lot of skimming from the cellulene coming out of the surface of the plastics that are on the filters and everything else, and that's going to skim up. Then your skimmer, you're going to think it's broken. It's not broken. You haven't really gotten anything to skim yet, and it hasn't really broken in, quote unquote. And that also has to do with, because it's plastic, your skimmer is more than likely going to be plastic, and its surface is going to be reacting with the salt water. And again, that's another good reason why to get a Rio Nano skimmer. If you're going to go coral only, or you're just going to keep like one little clownfish, or one or two little clownfish in a 29 gallon tank, you get you a big aqua clear, and that provides a lot more current. Okay. But if you're going to get more than, one fish per 10 gallons, you need a skimmer to be able to also keep coral. So if you're going to go that route, you can skip the aqua clear, just get the Rio Nano skimmer, and then get you a wave maker, which is a glorified term for underwater fan. Okay. And if you search for wave maker, you're going to find a lot of very expensive things that you might be distracted by. So search on eBay, or go to your local store and compare prices, I suppose, for a Fluval C, CP2 or CP3. CP2 for a 10 gallon, CP3 for a 20 gallon with only a little bit of rock in it. CP4. I wish I got a CP4 for my tank with all that damn rock in it. But obviously I have algae problems of my own making because I keep so many clownfish in one system. But that right there is the just realized y'all were quacking at each other. That right there is a little bitty elongated fan that sticks to the side of the glass here. And what you want to do is aim it as such that you get a nice little rotational current. Okay, and this is showing a Rio Nano skimmer and a fan. And you want your rocks right there to where, you know, like basically 3 little rocks hold up a big rock. Ideally, if you can get 2 little bigger rocks to hold up 1 big rock, you know. But what you want to do is allow for that flow area to be unimpeded. For every outcropping, you're going to have turbulence. For every amount of turbulence, it reduces the effectiveness of that fan as far as circulating all the water everywhere. Okay, so what you have to learn to keep track of is basically the amount of toxins that build up in your system. And to do so, bear in mind that it's not just like you're going to learn about bacteria, how it reduces ammonia by creating nitrates, and nitrates go into nitrites, and then nitrites turn into nitrates, and then plants absorb the nitrates, or you got to get rid of them with water changes. But when you're reading the product labels on certain things, you wind up thinking that the more surface area you get, the better off you are, just as a rule. And that's really not the case. You need a certain amount of surface area, but you need a certain amount of water. Fish don't swim in rocks. They don't breathe sand. Okay? Every amount of rock you put in the tank is going to have a certain area where it grows different types of bacteria. Where there's a lot of current, it's going to be doing the most important job. Where there's a little bit of a current, it's going to be doing the less important jobs. The most important job being breaking down that ammonia that comes from the fish poop. Okay? Basically, imagine your fish tank turning into a cat litter box because you don't have enough current going around or through all the rocks. And that stinks. Okay? And your fish don't like that smell. And actually, ammonia irritates their gills. It inflames their gills. There's been studies per quantity of ammonia based on the like microscopic observation of fish gill follicles. And the more ammonia in the water, the more inflamed their fish gills become. And also with temperature, also with salinity. The more alkaline, the more salinity in the water, if ammonia increases, if temperature increases, breathing becomes harder and harder. So you have to keep these things from spiking. But, okay, so what you're going to need is a nitrification surface area. Okay. And your rocks, they're going to be blocking off current. But you need those rocks with current going across them in order to populate the certain amount of bacteria. How much bacteria? About 20 times per fish. Okay? It's been my observation. Just take the fish and just give it about that much area on the surface of the rocks with some just nice current going across it. Okay? Then there's got to be about 5 times that much area with less current going across it for further nitrification. Then you've got to have what's called denitrification, okay, which is the breakdown of nitrite into free-floating nitrogen, nitrate into free-floating nitrogen. Okay, if you want that to happen on any level, you're going to need at least one big rock. Okay, but you can't fill up the tank with rock because denitrification won't happen inside of any of those smaller rocks, medium-sized rocks. One big rock will have denitrification happening in the middle of it. Another thing is, in your sand layer, okay, if you put too much sand, first of all, you're wasting fucking money. Second of all, you can get over denitrification, which means a big old thick pile of sand goes like this, and nitrogen comes out. And depending on the volume of the fish tank, the size of the bubble, it can kill a lot of fish. I've never seen that happen personally, but I don't know why I would waste money on more sand than is useful. If you want to have a sand bed, you need to have it separate from your tank with as little oxygen as possible, and you want to have water just kind of being pressurized through the whole thing. You don't want to have too much stagnant spots. There's toxic types of bacteria that develop in stagnant spots as well that can then overwhelm other types of bacteria once they bubble up, and then recycle your whole tank. And again, you don't get to observe this kind of stuff if you wind up throwing giant big money equipment on stuff. If you start out with a huge tank like the store recommends, So anyways, if y'all got any other questions about that stuff, I'd be happy to answer them. But here's the thing. This is a delicate balance. But it's a balance worth learning. Because that's the balance that determines humanity's future. Just the whole entire survival of mankind thing, kind of important, right? And I'm not talking about whether or not it can even be free or worth, I'm not even talking about whether life would be worth living. I'm just talking about survival. You're going to have to understand that. It's going to take that massive of an effort to save this planet, or we're all dead. Am I saying like everybody needs to get a 10-gallon tank? Yeah, pretty much everybody. at least learn about 75% of the world that you live on. You know? Like, okay. You know where your poo goes, right? Right? You generally speaking know where, like, cow and chicken and, like, other poo goes, right? You know where it eventually goes? All of it? All the chemicals that break down from it as the rain continues to fall? You know where shark poo goes? You know where fish poo goes? It's a lot of poo, isn't it? Humanity is full of shit. And they're going to suffer the consequences. Anyway. Quack, 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 quack. Gonna need some Aflac. So let me describe to you not just where the poo goes, but where the fish come from. Okay? I mean, obviously, we need to address the filtration system of our aquarium we call the Earth. Okay? We have commandeered the natural resources of this planet to such an extent to where, you know, you break it, you bought it. I mean, how fucked are we going to have to be before humanity gets it through their thick skulls that they need to take responsibility to learn how to do what is slowly no longer happening on its own? Or at least just, you know, fucking install some protein skimmers at the mouths of rivers, for God's sake. Okay? Install, like, let's figure out a way to make biodiesel out of it or something. I bet you we can make some kind of fucking dry cubes that can be burnt in coal factories. Hell, you could take coal and, before burning it, use it as activated charcoal to absorb some of the toxins. That would take a lot of doing, but you'd still be able to burn the damn coal, wouldn't you? I mean, if you're going to just fuck up the planet, you might as well use some of it to fix what you're doing, okay? The most effective the most effective processors of carbon dioxide produced by coal, you know, live in pristine ocean environments, macroalgae. Like, okay, I just had one. This guy right here, this is called codium. Okay? Look how pretty. If you buy a tank, I could probably send you some of that. You know, like. And once your tank is cycled and you get rid of the algae problems, and algae, by the way, doesn't really produce oxygen the way you think. In fact, many types of algae actually consume oxygen very rapidly. Once your tank gets past the inevitable algae phase from any starting up tank. And as long as you add plant growing nutrients to the system, which usually rivers provide, by the way, like river runoff is supposed to be a good thing. And we might actually have to take so many nutrients out of the river through protein skimming that we need to add supplements to the ocean. But I think we drop enough iron and stuff in the ocean with shipwrecks and whatnot that I don't think that's a problem. Got enough crap rusting out there. I think we're good. But anyway. Fuck was I saying? So we need to take responsibility for like just filtering crap, like just literally filtering crap. All the crap. Not just feces. I'm talking about just human waste products in general, especially fertilizer runoff that causes algae blooms. Okay. Bleaching kills the pretty corals at the diving spots. Okay. Algae kills that shit too. But usually the places that are much more productive as far as fisheries go, they have corals too there. But they're shipping lanes and they're like they're not the vacation spots. Most of their reefs are already dead. Unless there's high cross current from a major stream. Coastal reefs are just disappearing. And now, before I go any further in this, let it be plain that this planet that you live on can't really survive another world war. Okay, you're already literally about to just die on your own. If you start creating a desert out of everything, it's not going to come back from that. Okay. And that really is where we're headed. I hope everyone understands that. That's what the takers will inevitably result in. Because, they like it warm. They like it really warm. So, it's going to get really expensive really quick to be able to even have cattle of any kind. Even chickens. Even chicken is going to be a rare delicacy one day. And after you ruin all the land, impetulant little children, you should have the ocean to survive on, as in times past. The only way for humanity to survive the rebirth of desolation on land is for them to take to the sea. What if the ocean isn't waiting for you? What if before the land becomes desolate, as it has in the past, the ocean is laid to such waste that it bears no fruit. What will you do then? I'm suspecting a final delve into cannibalism before it all just disappears and there's nobody left. So, yeah. Might want to learn how to take care of the ocean. Might want to keep fish in the sea. Because it's very clear that if you kill the ocean before you kill the land, guess what? Land's gonna become more valuable. And I don't mean fucking real estate prices here. Okay, think about this for a second. When countries that rely on fishing for most of their food cannot provide it for themselves, who will they come for when they get hungry? And that's going to happen in one place after another. And not even necessarily on a nation by nation and a war by war basis. But it's a predictable pattern that can be very helpful in assisting divide and conquer strategies as well. So it's going to lead to political upheaval. It's going to lead to seemingly unrelated wars. But it all does sound, kind of familiar from a certain nation in the north. So, one of the biggest problems with taking to the sea at this point, in order to not subdue it, but to assist it, is that the ocean likes to destroy shit. And it occurs to me that one of the most replenishable resources that could be the most useful, especially when it comes to marine aquaculture, is wood. Okay? It's made of ducks, so it floats. Right? Only if it weighs as much as a witch. Yeah. I think my brain's shutting off. Hold on, I need more coffee. All right, so wood is made of ducks, and that's not what I was talking about. No, wood actually takes not much preservation before the salt will seep into it, and it'll last a really long time. And you can build a lot of different protective structures very easily, very quickly, out of fucking trees and shit. Now, you gotta get the leaves, all that crap off them so it doesn't decompose, But wood. I see them trying to do all kinds of crap. Really concrete? No. Wood. It grows out of the ground. Growing it doesn't destroy anything else. If you don't chop it all down, more of it grows. Oh. I I can't decide in real time whether or not to give my designs away, but I've got lots of designs on how to use wood to help plant more wood. So they use wood to help protect reefs and coastal areas. To use wood to help, I mean, cheaply build filtration systems that can be mass produced and linked together as budget permits and scale up over time. Like, no maintenance. Just crap that needs to be done but isn't being done. And one of the things that I'm delighted to see is now being done, and my kids got to participate in the past few years, is mangrove planting on the coast of Louisiana. But again, there's ways that you can use wood to make that not more efficient, but more aggressive. Okay, like not just to preserve what's there, but to expand the coast. You can actually use mangrove trees supported by networked wooden structures. Zero impact on the environment. No excess pollution left behind once once the desired effect is achieved. There's no cleanup afterward. There's so many things that we could be doing, but the problem is nobody understands how delicate the balance is. Nobody understands, and this is the thought that I was having earlier, that every clownfish you see, it's a miracle that it exists. Did you know that? They shouldn't be called clownfish. They should be called fucking miracle fish. That sounds stupid, doesn't it? I know. That's because you don't realize what it takes to be a little baby clownfish. Remember what I was saying earlier about metabolic rates, temperatures? Okay. Most clownfish come from very high temperature areas. When I feed 50 baby clownfish every hour, I'm feeding them at least 1,000 rotifers. Okay, there's a little bitty microscopic, well, semi-microscopic planktons that is basically the only thing that we can grow that baby fish eat. Well, that all tiny baby fish eat. Anyways. And, okay, so imagine that. An hour. Anybody want to do the math? 50 fucking fish, that's 250 or 25, no, 250. 25 fish, 25 at least rotifers per hour. Okay. That can't be right. I got to be feeding them way more than 1,000 rotifers. Basically, they eat a rotifer every 3 damn seconds. Okay. I don't even want to fucking. Like, you can look it up on the internet. I should know a more accurate count, but I know they require at least 1,000 rotifers being added to the system, and the rotifers will reproduce in the water while they're being eaten. But just imagine what it's like to be a little baby clownfish. And to have to eat 25 times an hour. 25 times an hour, you got to catch something. And by the way, the reason why you have to use rotifers is because if it doesn't move, they don't eat it. Okay, so they're hunting. From the moment they swim off the rock, or however they hatch out, they're hunting. And in the ocean, plankton. How much do you know about plankton? How much do you know about the life cycle, the delicacy of plankton? Does it at least seem to you like plankton is kind of delicate, kind of fragile? It is. In a marine environment, they don't have rotifers. Rotifers grow in brackish water. In a marine environment, plankton is often other babies. Babies of even smaller crustaceans and fish. So imagine if this fish here that feeds this fish here that you're going to eat needs a hiding place. And that big fish has babies that need a hiding place. Well, this fish here has babies too. They're going to need a hiding place. Whatever it eats, its parents, who are even smaller, probably being eaten by those fish's parents too. They also need a hiding place. Little crustaceans and things like that. There are specific types of plankton producing invertebrates, thousands of different species that only live, each species only lives on one type of coral. That coral goes away, that invertebrate goes away, that plankton goes away. The fish that eat that plankton have to hunt more. And if they get down to about 15 plankton in an hour, they're in the wrong spot. They don't get to live. Clownfish, when it's born at night. A lot of fish are. A lot of different marine organisms are. And if they can swim, usually what happens is they go straight to the moonlight. Being as, a lot of marine fish are pretty far down, little tiny fish, it takes them a while to get there. And the reason why, because they need light to hunt. They need to be finding food. Clownfish do anyways. As soon as they hatch. In the wild, you don't get nearly as much egg production as you do in captivity. Especially when the same circumstances are reduced. Because, the more productive the reef, the more pristine the environment, the more plankton, the better fed the parents are, the bigger the yolk sacs, okay? And the yolk sac is what determines how long that fish can survive before it gets enough food through its system to provide enough energy that it doesn't die of exhaustion. And every single clownfish heads right towards the moon. And while they're going up there, oh, there's a plankton. Oh, there's a plankton. But if they don't wind up in a current that is rich in plankton, they don't survive. Now we have algae currents. Clownfish don't eat algae. Baby clownfish don't eat algae. We used to have plankton currents. We used to have currents that fish would spawn for, and the baby fish would go off in the plankton current, and they would survive because not only would they have plankton to eat, so would their predators. Okay? And every single baby clownfish hatches, swims. And right now, in the ocean, imagine that. Imagine being a clownfish in an area with an algae covered or a bleached reef. You don't see many fucking clownfish out there, do you? You don't see a lot of different baby fish out there. Because the lionfish has eaten them all. Oh, it's all their fault. No. It's because the environment is no longer pristine. At the lower levels where the lionfish prefer to be, they've come up into the shallows and they've started eating fucking everything. There used to be plenty of fish down at the lower levels where we can't see. Okay? The fact that we're seeing those fish come up for food should tell us, most of the ocean, okay, this is why the numbers are so huge, okay, it's because most of the ocean is deep, not shallow. And lionfish prefer like 120 meters, something like that. But they can now be found in swarms in 8-foot, 15-foot, 30-foot reefs. And people are out there sparing them and shit. With the lionfish nemesis. Go down there at those lower levels with some trees or some shit. Some kind of structure that some kind of baby fish can hopefully live on. And maybe some smaller, hardier corals that require the current of a branched system will be able to attach to the wood. You might have a chance in hell. But going out there and sparing those fucking fish, are you kidding me? I mean, to get their food sources back. To get their food sources back, you have to increase the quality of the water. I mean, I'm talking about band-aids here by providing shelters for baby fish. That needs to be done. Okay, period. But without the plankton, you're not going to have a food chain. And what's interesting is some of the reasons why invertebrates are so species specific when it comes to the corals that they host is because of the common nutrient richness. Okay. And what makes usually what people consider to be the brilliant colors of saltwater species is what later down the food chain is ingested as trace elements. Okay. One of the reasons why people die so often, reasons why they die basically, is because your body has trouble producing enough trace elements to create DNA. DNA requires a lot of trace elements, especially as you get older and your body becomes more complicated. And without the marine food chain, I mean, the effects I think I'm already seeing. I think humanity has literally become nutritionally starved to their brains. And I really, for the life of me, cannot make sense of how quickly people die these days. Like, I don't remember it being this way. And, man, not only is there something wrong with the oxygen here, okay, like, basically, like, you used to be able to climb a mountain without getting short of breath. Okay. But it just seems like this place has become so screwed up that everybody can't help but think in the back of their head they can't wait to fucking leave this place. And that's horrible. We gotta fix that, y'all. Thanks for y'all's support, because I'm gonna do my damnedest. And if y'all have any questions for me, I'll talk to y'all tomorrow about it, because I gotta get some work done and then some sleep. Sleep. So thanks for watching, y'all. Before I go, I guess I'll go over these little listing things there. You control your lighting, your temperature, your current. And by current, the nutrient breakdown. You don't want any stagnant areas where fish poo is just going to linger. You want it to be blowing around. You want it to be caught by the little things that want to eat it. You want it to be rolling across that bacteria bed. Seriously, you don't want your fish poo lying around. Nobody wants fish poo lying around. Come on. Do you think your fish want fish poo lying around? Do you want your poo lying around? They don't want their poo lying around. I mean, you don't want it rolling around the yard, but it would be better. Interesting mental picture. Especially considering I used to use my motorcycle in like a little circle track around the. Never mind. Anyway, so big major thing that's like, once you have that down, you're pretty much good. Top it off. Your evaporation happens every single day, constantly. You need to constantly top it off. If you can just get over that, you can keep salt water. The only thing that really makes salt water harder than a freshwater tank is that you need to top it off every day. It's not just a matter of looks. It's not just a matter of how much do you want that looking crappy and pouring down there and making bubbles. No. As soon as it gets here, the fish's gills are going to start burning. So you add fresh water, it brings it back up there. And then, everything else is what you learn from there. Depletion happens from top off, because as the water evaporates, some of the ionized particles will go up with the air. So when you add your top off, there's a lot of different ways to address depletion, and that's some people can do with water changes. Some people buy supplements, and to each their own, really. They make calcwiser that you can just mix in with your fresh water. Just buy a little scoopful, shake it up for a while. Depletion, you're good. Then do your water changes, and that's your trace elements. Filtration, skimmer, hang on the back. Starting out, you know, it's going to teach you how much fish poo is actually in that system, because you're going to have to clean the filter out. But filtration, you see how it's number 6 on the list? Don't think filters are going to solve a damn thing, because you're going to be suffering from depletion problems long before your filtration makes you need a water change. You're going to be suffering from phosphate buildup and all kinds of shit before your filtration becomes an issue. So don't think I'm going to need to buy a big filter. Okay, that's where you do not need to spend money. Spend money on your lighting. Make sure you get a good heater. Make sure you can keep track of the temperature accurately. And then just make sure the current is good around the rocks. Top it off. And then learn about depletion. Learn about the minerals that make these pretty colors. Those are those trace elements that humanity needs to understand to extend their lives. And you need to understand, just on a basic level, how the ocean works to survive. I don't know what all that was about, but it's, you know, worth noting, I suppose. I'm too tired to try to figure out something to say to each one of those things. So, y'all have a good night. Thanks for joining me. Please click the like button and please subscribe if you haven't already. And pray for the little baby fishes that they all find enough plankton so we all restart. Fish release them for a while.
In my